Today I'm going to notify you about a career in which without we would be walking this earth on basically dirt. And this career is civil engineering. Today I'm going to educate you on all the duties of what a civil engineer does. First of all, the reason I'm talking about this is because ever since I was little, I was excited and attracted to the fact of building or fixing anything. It's because when I was growing up, my dad hardly called professionals to fix anything in the house. He rarely bought furniture. He would basically build shelves, cabinets, all that stuff himself. So as a kid, I was exposed to that at a young age. I was only little, and being the only guy in the house, he needed a helper. So I would just basically assist him on giving him tools or just getting tools from the garage. I wasn't using power tools yet. I was just still little. So the first tool I used was a Phillips screwdriver. With all my toys, I would just unscrew the screws, look inside, and just put it back together. And helping my dad carry the tools back and forth, I started to know the purpose of the tool and how to use it, because I would hold it in my hand, bring it to him, and then he would use it, and I would see how he uses it. So my goal today is to have you guys leaving knowing all the duties of a civil engineer. So what exactly does a civil engineer do? His main responsibility is to supervise and plan construction sites. Basically anything in any type of construction in society's infrastructure. They could exhibit their skills in different specialized fields, such as construction, environmental, structural, and transportation. Civil engineers can be found working on construction sites like buildings, dams, tunnels, bridges, airports, or highways. Literally anything that's been constructed or needs construction. Right now I'm going to show you some pictures provided by some architects. So there's one building. And all these buildings are real too, so it's pretty amazing. So I know your first impression on these was being amazed by the construction of how it's built, but without civil engineers, none of these buildings would come to life, because civil engineers basically work together with architects, and architects basically design the building, while engineers use their skills in physics and science to see how the building can actually be constructed so it safely stands, safely stands, and it'll be constructed pretty strong. So after they work together on the designs are agreed and approved upon, and now it's time for preparation. Before any building is built, there are many preparations to be met. The only preparations civil engineers are responsible for are knowing the materials that will be used for the building, such as or considering the state's weather or the condition of the ground, whether like the hottest days of summer, which material would be good to build in those places, or like countering heavy snow or anything like that. Another responsibility he has is calculating the measurements of every single corner and wall of the building. And for example, the buildings on, or the new apartments on Chapman, I don't know if you guys have seen it, or the construction being done here. Before they had those built, it was on paper, which look like this. Yeah, so these are all the walls. The little writings are the measurements and what room it is, and they just all have to put this on paper before they actually built it. Okay, so now that the plans are done on paper, it's time to bring the building to life. So a construction crew is put together to work on this site, and the responsibility of a civil engineer on the site is to, or they're basically like managers in a retail store. If there's any problems or situations that the workers can't figure out, then they would go to the manager to resolve it. And same responsibility applies to civil engineers on sites. If there's any problems, they all report to the civil engineer, making sure everything went smoothly and correctly according to the plan you put up. And so after it'll take about, I mean, it really depends how long it takes for a building to be completely finished. It depends on like how many workers there are, like if there's a deadline, anything like that. But once the building is completely constructed, a civil engineer has done his duties, and now it's time to move on to another project. So whenever you see a nice building, you know who made that design possible, or whenever you see construction being done, you know who's managing it, and which is a civil engineer. So now you guys know the duties of a civil engineer.
Blake, what did you think of Mikey's speech?
I thought he had a very good intro and a very good conclusion. I could relate with a lot of what he was saying because my grandpa has like a construction business, so having the dad that would always like do stuff instead of having like a professional come do it, I relate with that. So I thought that was cool, and I liked the screwdriver story, how you would undo your toys. Just kind of. I thought that was cool. I think that your visuals would have been better if you had them like loaded on the computer, because it was a little distracting when you had to walk over there and put them up and stuff. So if you just had them on the computer, that would help a lot. Other than that, I thought it was really good.
Okay, well, I agree with some of the things that you're saying. I do think that it needed a little bit more organization, so I think that that's something that I would have worked on some as well. I think, for instance, your story about getting the your first tool being the screwdriver and you're taking your toys apart and that sort of thing, I think that should be the attention device of the speech. When I was a kid, the first tool I got was the Phillips head screwdriver. Pretty simple, right? But, as a kid, I was curious about everything, and I, opened up my G.I. Joe, I deconstructed my Star Wars Death Star, I, took apart everything I could find. Usually I was able to put it back together again and make it all continue to function, but I had to know what was going on inside. And, my dad, and then go into the story about your dad and so on and so forth. And ultimately, this is what led me to this particular career interest, and that is, the whole field of being, being involved as a civil engineer. Well, let me explain to you what a civil engineer does. And I think that that would be a lot more interesting rather than the way you kind of back into it. This topic's clear, but it needs to be a little bit more compelling at the beginning. I like the story that you've got, but you save it kind of as a justification for us to listen to it rather than as an attention device. And then I think what you need to do on the subject of giving us a justification for listening to this material is point out that every building that's ever been